Welcome to the Culture of Writing podcast, where writers, editors, and content strategists from Salesforce talk about how we work together to improve our craft and make content better.
Hello, CX. My name is Christopher Seifer, and I have brought together my old team. We were all a big happy family in Service Cloud several years ago, and I just wanted to bring everyone together and talk about collaborative peer editing. So way back, if we go in the Wayback Machine to the 200 release, we had started collectively editing our titles and short desks. And this group got together in a physical room back when we did those things. And we reviewed all of our titles and short desks together, both to try to establish consistency, but also to improve the voice and tone and make sure that we had a nice, clean, plays well with others set of titles and short desks. And I'm just going to pop that up so that you can see how this came to be. For the 200 release, going way back in time, we pulled together a document where we had all of our titles and short desks in one big Google Doc. And we actually went through this kind of line by line, and we all read them aloud together, and we worked on editing and tweaking the titles and short desks. But another advantage to doing it this way was that we had a nice sidebar for conversations about the way things are formatted, the way things are described, questions back and forth.
Those comments are really a blast from the past.
I know, aren't they? So in 2008, this had evolved into a mega document. I think it's 60 some pages. And at this point, we were even putting in all of our content in draft form so that not only could we sort of look at it together and between ourselves and discuss it, but when you look at the busy sidebar over here, you'll see comments between us, and also eventually you'll see some comments from our PMs. Because we use this document, as well for collaborating with the PMs and developers as well, just to make sure that everything was accurate and people could go in here between the different Service Cloud product managers and make sure that everything was accurate, that it states the case the way that they would want to, and so forth. So it really became the full Monty of our release notes for 208, and it was used as the approval document as well. So PMs could go in and say, yes, I've reviewed it, yes, I've commented, and so forth, and it's all here. So I'm going to stop presenting, but I just kind of wanted to open up this roundtable for folks to reminisce and also to discuss the pros and cons of doing it this way. So anybody have any fond memories of our time together on this?
I'm still in Service Cloud, so I can just say that this is still going strong with a few tweaks to the process, but that it's really valuable for a few reasons. One, it helps us be more aware of what our teams are doing, which can be a challenge with all of these different dev teams. Two, I think we're all really good editors, and it's nice learning from each other in that live editing experience. And three, since we're all mostly remote now, it's a really nice kind of team bonding experience because we're all word nerds. So it's lovely to just be in a meeting with other people who also really care about words and talking through the best way to, follow our guidelines and boost SEO and all that stuff. So I'm a big fan of collaborative editing.
I'm so touched that you guys are still doing it that way. So you actually are still doing it in a live meeting, not just sort of comments in the doc?
Yes. Well, it's kind of both. We've split into kind of subgroups. So not all of the release notes no longer appear in one Google Doc because I'm a little worried that would crash or get a little too slow. If you want, I can share really quickly what we have right now.
Yeah, please do.
So now it looks something like this, where there's a doc that has the release notes outline and deadlines. And each section is in its own separate Google Doc. For example, if this is for 242, which already happened. So if I jump to messaging, which has 3 writers, you can see we've got this separate kind of templatized Google Doc, which has all of our titles and short desks and eventually the body text of each release note. And so this is the one that the writers share with their PMs and teams and get feedback and then eventually convert to XML. But each of these little ones, we've got the name of the writer and all that stuff. So it's very easy to track. Michael, the manager, can look it over. And so it's a nice process. And then we've got these good old release note deadlines down here for the
that
writers.
is a beautiful evolution. Actually, I was going to mention the deadlines because at the top of the 210 doc, that's kind of an important aspect of this. So let me share that one more time. So you really do have to sort of back it up from the release deadlines. So we had a big schedule, which looks like you've replicated and kept up to date, starting almost 2 months before the localization drop. Because one of the key deadlines, of course, is getting it to the formal editing process, backing up from there. So if we look at the drop dead, which was April 20th, we started the process in February. And so it's kind of important to make sure that you hit all these things and also account for writing kind of the top level summary, which you can really only do after you've seen a draft of all of the topics. Oh, that's cool. Is anybody else who's out there in the world doing anything similar still with your teams?
I've tried to promote basically the same thing within Revenue Cloud. We have, much fewer writers, so we are able to do it in a single doc, but I love being able to just check the deadlines. I also feel like the peer review and peer editing is really helpful because other folks always have better ways to tweak my titles and the short desks than my initial draft or second draft or third draft even. So I really appreciate that feedback, and I feel like, all of us are collectively smarter than just one of us sitting alone in front of a computer. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I found, especially when I was a newer writer back in 200, 202, I learned so much faster by being able to be in the room or virtual room with all of the more experienced writers. It really helped me not only learn how to write release notes better, but just the collaboration aspect of it made me feel more confident that I could give this to my PM and say, yes, I know what I'm doing. Here are my release notes. And so anyone who's new to the team, it's just such a great way to ramp up on the products and features. And it was fun to workshop titles together and play with voice and tone and see what else we could add together as a team. And I think that really added to the cohesiveness of the entire cloud section because at least a couple other people's eyes were in it. And I know it's harder and harder for managers to be able to review the whole thing. You can tell from that first doc you showed, Christopher, Dean was leaving a lot of comments because the team was smaller. So he really had time to go in and read these release notes and leave comments. That's harder and harder for managers to do. So having the peer review is also a great way to give the manager that confidence as well.
Oh, no. One of the areas that's been very helpful as a writer in this process is having a release note wrangler for a specific product line. So we have one writer designated each release and they rotate, keeping us on track with the deadlines, creating the Google Docs so we don't have to create them from scratch, letting us know when localization needs things, syncing up with various people across CCX so that we're all aligned. And it takes a lot of the headache or confusion that I, as an individual contributor, would have if I didn't have that person helping to wrangle all of those things at once. And it also gives that person, the wrangler, an opportunity to do a little bit of project management, work with people they don't usually work with, maybe see things across CCX no one else has seen before. So it's kind of a win-win.
That mishmash of things that I love about it, if you don't mind me just going through a quick laundry list, is I don't see any downsides. So I don't see any cons to it, but the pros is there's a few elements. One is it's such a supportive place to workshop stuff. I've never seen it competitive or there's any pressure to do it perfectly. People come in and they'll just admit This stuff is messy. Here's what I've got. And we just talk it through until we get it to a good place. So I like the constructive brainstorming and editing process. That seems amazingly supportive. And also one thing, Lindsay and I are kind of in the same little mini pod of Service Cloud today. And one thing that's interesting is I love both working with people who kind of know, like, the sister products or the related products. That's a cool perspective. And even someone who doesn't know anything also has another element of a cool perspective on, like, I don't know this feature at all. You're using all these terms that don't make sense to me. And so it's really fun to workshop it from a few different perspectives. I do developer docs, and so sometimes I don't have as much admin-centric release notes to write, but I still kind of treasure these sessions because they're really interesting. You get a cool perspective on, like, what's the point of these features? What do they buy? What are they good for the customer's from the customer's perspective? And how do we explain it as clearly and simply as possible? It's so useful to take that mindset and bring it back to whatever you're doing. So I kind of find this sometimes the highlight of the process because we're really just all in it together to kind of make this as clean and clear and compelling as possible. I kind of think it's an amazing experience to get together and workshop things this way.
Memories of coming up with, like, maybe clever but maybe not so great titles, and then someone would be like, maybe that one didn't hit the mark, maybe we should be a little less clever. Because I'll admit, like, sometimes I'm like, how can I kind of have a little theme here or do something kind of clever, and it sometimes didn't work out. So having, like, a friendly gut check to be like, no, let's go back to, like, just the basics here was really good.
Or the opposite, where it's like, this is really boring. Can you make this not boring?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm on the other side. I'm like, I need to put some pizzazz into this short test.
Yeah. I also think it really improves the quality of the release notes because it forced you to kind of explain your feature and the value proposition to other people who weren't as familiar. And by the time I had finished writing the release notes and they were ready to be sent to the CX editors, they were pretty polished. Like, the CX editors didn't have to, weren't making big stylistic changes because they were pretty well put together.
No, I'd like to comment when Kate mentioned the quality assurance aspect of it. I've noticed that in a lot of these conversations we've had, not only are they wonderfully collaborative and help us think differently about our products, but I've noticed that we've also put a lot of comments in specifically for PMs, because somebody like Lindsay or UV, who, let's say, aren't on the feature that I'm documenting, will raise some really good questions about, does this feature do this? Does it do that? Does it intersect with this? And someone like me may say, I have no idea. We should probably ask the PM, because customers are going to ask the same questions. And it gives the Scrum teams an added layer of success with what they're building as well.
Yeah, it is a great way to just break down those silos. And I wanted to say that also, as our SEO experience manager, is learning more about, like, the search experience for Salesforce docs in general, and just showing how important our titles and short desks are. So I think that exercises like this are incredibly valuable, not only for team building, but just the quality aspect.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't work on release notes anymore, but I did really notice with this team in particular, because we were so, like, primed for this collaborative work together. Christopher, when you and I were sort of setting up the UI text review office hour process, I found that this team was so quick to adopt it because, again, like, we were used to sitting in a room together and workshopping. No one was afraid to show their, half-baked content or bring, 3 different options and see which one was the best one. And I think still the Service Cloud team uses the office hours a lot more than what I've seen other clouds do. So I think that it not only helped with the release notes itself, but I just think generally, like, that practice with being collaborative as a whole team really spreads to other areas. And I loved working on the UI text for Service Cloud. I miss you guys because it was always so collaborative, and I always learned something new in those sessions because we're really good at talking about our work and asking questions and knowing how to dig in.
I'd like to mention something to what Lindsay spoke of, which I think has helped streamline and reduce costs on our team. And what that is by having the editors and the PMs review all the content in the Google Doc, the one single Google Doc, that means that there's less overhead for all of us individual writers to send, let's say, PDFs from XML or generate some other format to send them. And once all the editors review the content in that Google Doc, again, in one place, so they don't have to go through Perforce, they don't have to check anything out, any of those kinds of things. Once everything's finalized in the Google Doc, then we can easily transfer over to XML. And I've noticed that that's been very helpful for newer writers who maybe not quite have the confidence yet to wrangle things in XML. So I think we've probably eliminated, I don't know how many hours from people's days by just focusing on that one Google Doc format and then transferring everything to XML at the end.
Yeah, I do feel like we're a commercial for Google Docs and its collaborative tools.
Totally. Sponsored by.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that was hinted at, but I feel like it's so useful, is whether it's a junior writer, so new to the career of writing, or just new to Salesforce. Either way, this, I feel like we model really good methods for writing in these sessions. So I feel like it's extra valuable for someone new to just come in, see how everyone's thinking through these issues and how they tackle it. It's just like these gems of these little sessions that they can really get a feeling for what it's like to be a good tech writer, which doesn't involve knowing it all right away, but more about that process to get to something better. Anyway, so I feel like these sessions model something for the newcomers.
Kind of helps onboard people as well and indoctrinate them into the culture of this team in a way that's probably not done elsewhere.
And I think, as anyone who has ever worked with a good editor knows, you start hearing your editor's voice in your head when you're writing. And it's kind of the same for these reviews. You start hearing someone saying, oh, you can just get rid of those 5 words. You don't need, you can. Things like that.
Yeah. And also, Yuvi, it's beneficial not just to have another, peer editor in a different product, but different perspectives that each of us has.
Well, I think that speaks to such a great part of this, which is like leveraging people's expertise. Like, especially when I was a junior writer, I couldn't afford everyone's time. Like if I had to pay everyone per minute, it wouldn't have worked out. But being able to get everyone together where it's like, like I knew some people before, I didn't know everybody, but then it's like, Gavin, you've been at this company for so long, and having your experience and mindset could help me see a bigger picture. And, Alicia, like you were always so good at data and XML, and you were always giving really great suggestions on like structure and how to order things. And like that is wider than just drafting, release notes and editing. You get a bigger picture of everything about the role. And it's like you're getting experts' opinions for free in these big groups where you wouldn't maybe normally get that face time in other companies or other places.
I also think it's very helpful when the writer is interacting with their other stakeholders, with product management or developers, or other marketing, or other folks who have opinions about what the release notes should look like and what content should be included. And so it's helpful to basically, be able to say, this is the Salesforce standard for how we're doing this. We can say this, we can't say that. For example, the forward-looking statement.
I remember I would look at other people's release notes and be like, okay, maybe I don't need to include all of this stuff. Like, how do I point off to help content appropriately versus how much do I include in the release notes? And I definitely remember using everyone else's release notes to kind of guide me in that decision making about how much to include and like how to make the business value as clear as possible. I constantly remember people telling me like, oh, move this sentence up. That's the important thing. And you put it way down here.
Well, great. Well, because we want to keep this a manageable thing for other folks to watch, I will sort of pause us there. But thank you all. It's been, as a couple of you have said, a great little reunion and reminder of, gee, what a fun team we were. And I'm glad to see that several of you are still, working on this process in the same way, and that it's really only had to evolve a little bit. If anyone listening to this has questions, you can reach out to any of us. Clearly, Lindsay and Yuvi and others are still doing this actively. We're happy to share previous artifacts, and we're all here to help. So thank you all. It's really great to see you, and back to your regularly scheduled jobs.
Are we actually leaving?
Oh, he really walked out on us.
He's scheduled a full hour.
This is just the beginning of this session.
I thought we were gonna hang out.
Yeah,
I think we're still recording.
Still recording.
I like how this
Let's
the
drop.
blooper
I'm
is
gonna
being
stop
recorded.
it. I'm